Hello. In 1999, a 13-year-old girl living in an orphanage was taken to the police station by a social worker to report a strange incident. The girl said that she often dreamt of a woman with a tongue tree tattoo, repeatedly demanding her lost head be returned. The police realized the matter was not simple and immediately launched an investigation based on clues from the dream. The investigation revealed a horrifying case that shocked the public in Hong Kong at the time: the Hello Kitty murder case. The story unfolded in Kowloon, the geographical center of Hong Kong, surrounded by the sea on three sides. Along with Hong Kong Island and the New Territories, Kowloon forms one of the three main regions of Hong Kong. Places like Tsim Sha Tsui, Yo Ma Tei, and Mong Kok in Kowloon are famous bustling areas that attract tourists with a variety of shopping, dining, entertainment, and cultural activities. However, little did people know that behind the urban prosperity, a horrifying and mysterious murder occurred in an apartment on a busy street in Kowloon. On Monday, May 24, 1999, as Hong Kong entered the last days of May with scorching weather and sudden rains, two women, one young and one older, appeared at the Kowloon police station. The older woman was a social worker from the Harbour Women's Protection Institute near Kowloon Pier. This facility, managed by the Social Welfare Department, provided temporary shelter and support services for girls in need of protection or illegal immigrants awaiting processing. Standing next to the social worker was a 13-year-old girl named A Fong, according to the social worker. Recently, A Fong had shown many unusual behaviors. The girl frequently had nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night in a panic and mumbling about seeing a headless woman who continually demanded her lost head back. Initially, the social worker thought A Fong was having regular nightmares, but the repeated nature of the same dream made her suspicious. The social worker decided to conduct psychological counseling for A Fong, and unexpectedly, a horrifying case was revealed. A Fong, 13 years old, had a boyfriend named Lung Wai Lun, 19 years old, a street thug. 2 months earlier, in March 1999, Lung Wai Lun had taken A Fong away from the Harbour Women's Protection Institute to live together in an old apartment. There, A Fong met two other men who were friends of Lung Wai Lun. Additionally, she saw a woman in striped clothes with disheveled hair. According to Lung Wai Lun, the woman had been kidnapped by all three. A Fong did not know who the woman was and did not dare to ask much. During her time at the apartment, A Fong witnessed her boyfriend and his two friends torturing and beating the woman multiple times. They even forced A Fong to join in the abuse by pouring chili oil on wounds and making her eat her own waste. Witnessing such horrifying scenes, A Fong was terribly afraid. She dared not disobey their orders and had to comply. A month later, unable to withstand the savage attacks, the unfortunate woman died. To hide their crime, the three men became even more frantic. They dismembered the victim into several pieces and then cooked the parts. They even forced A Fong to put the cooked body parts into noodle bowls to serve them as a delicacy. After experiencing these horrifying events, A Fong suffered severe psychological trauma. She began to hallucinate, became mentally unstable, and frequently saw the deceased woman continuously demanding her lost head back. Due to A. Phuong's abnormal changes, Leung Wai Lun became bored with her and decided to break up, kicking her out of the house. With no place to go, Phuong had to return to the Harbor Women's Protection Institute. In the following days, she frequently had nightmares and her health deteriorated. This condition caught the attention of the social worker at the orphanage. Initially, the worker intended to conduct psychological counseling for A. Phuong. Unexpectedly, however, she discovered that the girl had witnessed a horrifying murder outside. After understanding the information, she quickly took A. Phuong to the police station to report the incident. The police immediately took A. Phuong's statement. However, due to her unstable mental state, A. Phuong could not continue. The police had to temporarily halt the statement taking. 2 days later, A. Phuong returned to the police station to cooperate with the investigation. This time, her spirit was much better. A. Phuong revealed that the victim was named Phan Man, 23 years old, a bar hostess. The 3 perpetrators included A. Phuong's boyfriend, Leung Wai Lun, 19 years old, and his 2 friends, Chan Man Lok, 33 years old, and Leung Xing Cho, 26 years old. A. Phuong stated that after killing Phan Man, the 3 men dismembered the victim. As she recounted this, A. Phuong's face showed sheer horror, too scared to continue. Under the guidance of the police, APHGRU, trembling, finally disclosed an address, 31 Gia Le Street, in Gai Hiai Umexiterza. Upon receiving the lead, the police immediately dispatched personnel to the provided address. It was a dilapidated 5-story apartment building comprising a basement and 4 above-ground floors. APHGRU indicated that the incident took place in an apartment on the 3rd floor. Previously, she and her boyfriend had lived in the apartment opposite it. The police intended to take APHGRU to the scene to aid in the investigation, but she was in a state of panic, her face pale, and she adamantly refused to go up. APHGRU was kept downstairs while several police officers proceeded to the upstairs for inspection. They ascended a pitch, dark stairwell, devoid of any lighting. After a while, they reached the apartment on the 3rd floor. The police knocked on the door, but received no response. Ultimately, they decided to break down the door and enter. A pungent, foul odor assailed their nostrils. Being experienced officers, they recognized it immediately as the distinctive smell of a decomposing body. Turning on the lights, they saw the apartment had 6 rooms. On the floor in one corner, a large Hello Kitty doll stood out strikingly. The doll was stained with blood and reeked of decay. One officer picked up a metal rod from the floor and poked the Hello Kitty doll. When he poked the head, he felt a hard object inside. At that moment, they were almost certain that a murder had occurred in the apartment, and immediately called for backup. When the support team arrived at the scene, they carefully disassembled the doll. Inside, the doll was stuffed with camphor balls, emitting an intense odor. After removing all the stuffing, they discovered a human skull inside the doll's head. The skull had been boiled, emanating a putrid smell, with some flesh still not fully decomposed. Upon initial examination, the skull was found to be incomplete, with the lower jaw missing, and only a few teeth remaining on the upper part. Police also found some fragments of teeth and hair scattered inside the doll. In other parts of the apartment, they continued to discover additional teeth fragments. 2 stoves were found containing camphor balls, a small refrigerator, and a hammer. Notably, on the ground floor's terrace, a plastic bag filled with partially decomposed but boiled human organs was found. Inside the refrigerator were numerous scratch marks, presumed to be from storing body parts. The 2 stoves were identified as tools used to cook the head and organs. There were still some body parts left unaccounted for amidst the decomposition. Because the head and organs found at the scene had been boiled, the flesh and hair were destroyed. Unable to conduct DNA tests to identify whether the victim was Pham Nguyen, the police invited forensic experts from the United States to assist in the investigation. They used the photo comparison method to identify the victim. The image used for comparison was a photo of Pham Nguyen smiling, focusing on 2 remaining teeth found in the skull within the doll. The results showed that the size and position of the 2 teeth matched perfectly. From there, the police confirmed that the body belonged to Pham Nguyen. The victim, Pham Nguyen, was born in 1975 and died at the age of 23. When she was 6 years old, her father left the family due to debts, abandoning both his wife and child. Her mother later remarried but did not want to raise her daughter. Abandoned by her family, Pham Nguyen was taken in by a livestock caretaker, where she spent her childhood years. Time passed quickly, and by the time she turned 15, Pham Nguyen was forced to leave the caretaker to become independent, as she had reached adulthood. According to regulations, children without congenital diseases must leave the caretaker's care at the age of 15. After leaving the caretaker, homeless, Pham Nguyen tried to find work to survive. However, lacking professional skills, she could only get manual labor jobs like waitressing or delivering newspapers. She was frequently fired for her clumsiness. Whenever she had money, Pham Nguyen would rent a spot in cheap inns. If not, she had to reside in squalid, shabby slums. In her youthful recklessness, Pham Nguyen associated with a number of delinquents, often wandering the streets with them on motorcycles. Perhaps due to youthful impulsiveness and a desire to experience new things, she fell into drug addiction. Her meager income was barely sufficient to cover living expenses, and the additional burden of addiction left her constantly in need. To earn money, she became a prostitute, often working in the areas of Dita Cbo Olar and Vijo Ingigik. Her lonely life continued until 1996, when she was 21 years old and contracted to work at a nightclub through friends' introduction. Compared to her previous job, the working environment here is safer and the income is higher. After working for less than a year, the Aishi Nme Ningi got acquainted with a pimp who frequently visited the nightclub. The two began dating and living together. The man's name is Engchi Vn, nicknamed Ah. Fian Mmengi fell deeply in love with Engchi Vn, and she even quit her job, determined to build a happy life with her lover. However, Engyu Vn's mother disliked Fian Mmengi, considering her background unclear and labeling her as a promiscuous, immoral woman. As a result, Fian Mni and Engi Vi have yet to get married. 2 years later, Phi Enki became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She moved to live with her boyfriend's mother in Eldao Village, New Territories. For some reason, after living with Enku Chi Vian's mother, he gradually changed, perhaps influenced by his mother's words. Eng Chi Vi infrequently suspected PNMM of cheating on him. The couple often argued, and Engu Chi Vi even beat Fian MNG. Witnessing his increasingly outrageous behavior, Fiavan MNNG was determined to take her son and leave to avoid further harm. However, she also understood that if she left Endo Shivien, she would have no source of income. Thus, Vhnmming buried her plan deep in her heart. To save money, she secretly returned to working as a bar hostess. In the past, Peach on MME had taken a high-interest loan and, unable to pay it back, was kidnapped by the loan shark right at her home. This loan shark was none other than Tresson VN8, one of the three perpetrators of the crime. He, along with his accomplices LJ Oengi V. Luunen and LJ Oyin Tin T, murdered Fiat and MNA. After identifying the suspects, the police quickly began the hunt. The police received a tip that suspect Trathan Vian and Nut was hiding in an apartment in Tharchi LA Village, New Territories. This location is roughly 2.2 km north of FRM and I's residence and about 12 km rebev from Jialin High Road, where her body was found. Following this crucial lead, the police immediately stormed Trevor Vian Naud's apartment. At that moment, he was in the kitchen cooking with his wife, and their young child was lying in a cradle. Surprised by the unexpected police raid, Tran Viva Not was stunned. He couldn't believe he was caught so quickly. After Churhan Vila Nun's arrest, the police obtained more detailed information about the case. They continued to hunt the remaining suspects, Adolu Tin T and LJLJ VV Loon. Hearing of Tround VN Nun's arrest, LJ Onin Tin T and LJ Ngi Luan fled. However, 2 days later, knowing they could not escape, LJ Onin Tin T surrendered to the police, hoping for leniency from the law. Currently, only the final suspect, Eljon V. Luun, remains on the run. Reading the news about LJ Onin Tin T surrender and fearing his hideout would be exposed, LJ Oningi V. Loon fled Hong Kong, crossing into mainland China. Upon learning of LJ Yi V. Lude's escape, Hong Kong police contacted Interpol for assistance in the manhunt. 9 months later, during a mission, Chinese police accidentally discovered LJ Lungi V. Lun. Unable to present identification, he was arrested. Eljalajorngi V. Loon was then extradited back to Hong Kong to face charges. Tran Vilan and Et, aged 33, was the mastermind behind this case. He worked as a cashier at a nightclub and had several encounters with VNMM Nengi. Additionally, Turthan Vidin Namnedo was a member of a notorious gang. His subordinates LJ Onyu Tinti, age 26, and LJ V. Loon, age 19, obediently followed his orders. 2 years earlier, Fian MM and Nungi's grandmother fell gravely ill, requiring urgent money for treatment. VH on Ngai's boyfriend, Engu Chi Vien, a severe addict, had squandered their savings. To fund her boyfriend's addiction, VH on Nai resorted to theft. Using her looks, she approached and stole 8,000 Hong Kong dollars, about 26 million VND at current rates, and some other assets from Ter en Vivan the T. Upon discovering the theft, Trason and Vivan Nana A immediately suspected Phi and Ngi. He sent his henchmen, LJ Onyington T and Eljaron V. Loon, to her home to demand repayment. By then, Phi A on MNA had already spent all the stolen money. She begged them for more time, promising to find a way to repay her debt. To gather the money to repay her debt, Peter MMNN had to continue working as a call girl. At this point, Ter en Vivan NA had become a pimp, forcing her to prostitute herself to repay him. Later, Phi H on MM Ngi became pregnant, but did not know the father's identity. The physical burden prevented her from continuing her work. Despite this, the three men did not spare her, continuing to force her to turn tricks. The pressure was so great that she had no choice but to comply. Out of the 8,000 Hong Kong dollar debt, Fiazan Nun managed to repay 4,000. She thought she could escape this suffocating life. However, unexpectedly, Turhan V and Nunnet suddenly increased the interest rate, pushing the remaining debt of 4,000 Hong Kong dollars up to 30,000 Hong Kong dollars. It turned out that Ter en Vivan realized Fion MNNA was a lucrative money-making machine, and he did not want to let her go, wanting to continue exploiting her to make even more money. P. Chips on MNN Ningi was indignant but did not dare to resist. She could only grit her teeth and endure. She forced herself to funnel all her earnings to repay the debt to Ter en Vivan in the Tate. A year later, VHRM Daigan Hai had paid additional full 14,000 Hong Kong dollars to Ter en Vivan in 8, including the previously paid 4,000 Hong Kong dollars. In total, she had repaid 18,000 Hong Kong dollars, approximately 58.5 million VND, at the current exchange rate, far exceeding the original debt of 8,000 Hong Kong dollars. VHN and Emma Nay still had her family and her own life. She was too exhausted by the oppression and control of Ter en Vivan Nuit and his associates. Determined, she refused to take any more clients or answer any calls demanding payment. This act of defiance enraged Ter en Vivan and his associates, leading them to decide to teach her a lifelong lesson. 2 months before the incident, Chu Anan Nanati ordered El Jonin Tin, UTN LJNG via Loon to go to on MNG's residence at Betat Ko Sichu. They took her to apartment number 31 on Jia Lin High Street, Tiamsa Turkai, and detained her in a room on the 3rd floor. The building at 31 Jia Lin High Street had 2 owners who, due to disagreements, did not utilize the building, resulting in severe deterioration of the facilities. Several apartments were left vacant and not leased. Chertan V and Nate had 2 friends living on the 2nd floor of the building. Knowing the 3rd floor apartment was vacant, they introduced it to Tiahan and Vilainaya Tate. The 3rd floor apartment had 6 bedrooms. Trehien VNA and his wife lived in room 4, Ljeongin Tinti and his girlfriend lived in room 6, and Ljg Vilulun and his girlfriend APHJO lived in room 1. Phi Aram Anungi was detained in room 3, as Ter en Vivan Nunet's wife had just given birth. She often stayed at a relative's place downstairs to facilitate caregiving, occasionally coming up to the 3rd floor to sleep. The 2 friends on the 2nd floor frequently visited the 3rd floor to hang out. Therefore, within the month that Viech on MNNG was detained on the 3rd floor. Up to 8 people knew of the situation, and she was abused. On the first day of her detention, Truhan Vega Nananan that interrogated her, shouted at her for not paying her debt and ignoring calls, and ordered LJ Orun V. Loon to beat her. LJ Orun V. Loon kicked FNNM Amenkai over 50 times. Being a weak woman, she could not withstand the brutal blows and could only scream in agony. To prevent PHNM Unhe's cries for help from being heard outside, Turhanan Vinana and his associates boarded up all the windows with wooden planks. Later, Turhanan Vilainayadet, Eljain Tinti, and Eljianogi V. Lu stripped Fion MNNIve of all her clothes and took turns violating her. Fi Asian MMA was tortured to the point of near collapse, lying motionless on the floor. Bita and K sat nearby, eating hot pot, commenting and laughing at her misery. In their wicked glee, they even threw boiling hot pot food at her, forcing her to crawl to pick up the food like a dog. Humiliated, Piedam and Emma naturally refused to cooperate. Seeing this, Trea and Va and Nuttet picked up the food from the ground near her mouth and forced it into her, making her eat. Fiatran M. Unki immediately vomited from disgust. Unluckily, the vomit splashed onto Trahan and Vila Numit's shirt. He could no longer contain his rage and pulled her up from the floor, slapping her continuously across the face. Still unsatisfied, Truthon V and Nuthet poured boiling cooking oil into Fiazon M. Nunki's mouth. The following morning, while Trasan and Vita Nene was still asleep in room 4, Eljalun Tin, and Eljiornan V. Lu sneaked into room 3 where Fietz an Emanuni was being held. They hit her forcefully, waking her abruptly. They then used a lighter to heat up a rod and burn her feet until her skin was scorched and bleeding. Next, they sprinkled chili powder on her bleeding wounds. Not stopping there, Eljairungi V. Luan melted plastic using a lighter and poured the hot, molten plastic over her feet, while Eljaidongi Tinti held her legs firmly to prevent her from struggling. They laughed loudly at her pain and threatened her with even worse violence if she screamed. The hot plastic stuck to her skin, covering her feet with burns. They then used sticks to break the blisters and sprinkled more chili powder on the open wounds. Fiazan M. Nemai writhed in excruciating pain, her screams and groans echoing throughout the room until she passed out from the agony. Eljanan Tinti stood up and urinated on her face. Then, LJ Thonyungi V. Luan called his girlfriend APH Heongi and ordered her to defecate into a bowl and forced VH An M. Anide to eat it all. During more than a month of imprisonment, Phian Viva Naneng was brutally tortured almost every day. The 3 captors treated tormenting her as a form of entertainment. They also forced Fian Viva Neng to use drugs, and gradually, she became addicted, frequently scratching the scars on her body. To prevent Phian Viva Neng from further injuring her wounds by scratching, the 3 captors took turns beating her hands with iron rods. Subsequently, they tied her hands tightly with electric wire and hung her from the ceiling. Due to bearing her full body weight for a long period, her arms became swollen and bruised. Trasan NV and Nundra C then let her down and ordered her to place her hands on the floor, subsequently smashing them repeatedly with an iron rod until they were crushed. A month after being captured, in a moment of confusion, Fiazan Vilaneg secretly took Villanada's drugs. Upon discovering this, the three captors brutally beat her, eventually causing her head to swell and knocking her unconscious. This incident had happened multiple times, so the captors paid no attention and even left her there while they went to a bar. That night, when they returned, they found Van Vineng lying unconscious in the bathroom. To check if she was still alive, Traana Villanada struck her chest forcefully with a water pipe. Only then did her body react. Seeing her body convulse uncontrollably, Duph Jaunji shouted in fear. Tersan en Veen Enersi and Eljaljanji Vifaloon, seeing this, lied that Piachan Vivaneng was having a drug overdose. After a while, Fiazan Vivaneng lay still again. Not stopping there, Chair en Vidanundersi took a lighter and held it to her foot. In excruciating pain, she jerked her leg back. They then dragged her into a corner and went to their rooms to sleep. The next morning, Ljon V. Palu called his girlfriend to check on Fiason and V. Lineng. APHJ Onan walked into the bathroom and found Fion V in an egg, lying motionless on the floor. Concerned, she placed her hand on Fion V in Anez's chest, but her heart had stopped beating and her limbs were stiff. Terrified, APH Donran ran back to the room and recounted the whole incident to Eljain Ongi Vipalu and others. Fiashan and Vilan Nun had died, but they did not care about handling the body, leaving her there. It wasn't until a few days later, when Fiashan Vidine Nenva's body started to decompose and emit a foul odor, that they decided to deal with it. They dragged her body out of the bathroom, dismembered it into several parts, and stored it in the refrigerator, waiting for an opportunity to dispose of it. To avoid suspicion, they divided the body parts into several plastic bags and disposed of them at various garbage dumps. After disposing of most of the body parts, they realized they still had a plastic bag containing internal organs. Feeling bothered, Tress and V on the sea, not wanting to go out again, threw the plastic bag out the window. The plastic bag landed on the awning of the ground floor. Now, only Fion Vilaneng's head remained to be dealt with. Tran and Vianundra C placed the head in a pot, boiled it for a while, and then left it to cool. As he stared at her lifeless face, he muttered, "Stay still. I'm going to make you up." He then took a Hello Kitty mermaid doll, removed the stuffing inside, placed Fion Vianendra's head into it, and sewed it back up. After handling the body, they left the apartment, abandoning the Hello Kitty doll containing Feigning on a V. Eng's head. In fact, a few weeks before H.H. Jadron reported to the police, they had received some complaints from residents of building number 31 on GLOGL, Ngai Street about a strange full odor. However, at that time, the police investigated but found nothing suspicious, assuming the smell was due to pollution. After the case was uncovered, some neighbors stated that around April and May, they frequently saw some thugs coming to the apartment, but did not know who they were. Someone heard chopping noises from the third-floor apartment, but since the windows were covered, they could not see inside. A year and a half later, the case went to trial at the High Court with 7 jurors. Tridhan and Vidine Nun AC LJ Angin Tin T and LJ Ode V Par Luan were charged with murder, kidnapping, and interfering with the burial of a body. At the trial, The three defendants only admitted to kidnapping and interfering with the burial of the body, denying all murder charges. Eljadonin Tinti and Eljador Vihar claimed they were only following Turtayan and Vin Afifi's orders. Witness A.H. Dayornyu testified that she did not personally witness V.H. and Vidin and Negi's death and did not know the specific cause. The defense lawyer argued that V.H. and Vidanen did not die from attacks, but due to a drug overdose. The prosecutor countered that Eljadonin Tinti once saw blood coming from V.H. Vien Nachi's ear, indicating that she had died from severe beatings. After 2 months of trial, the jury, with a 61 ratio, declared that the three defendants were not guilty of murder, but were guilty of manslaughter. With a life sentence that does not allow for parole before 20 years, which is the maximum penalty for manslaughter. No other individuals were prosecuted in this case. The three defendants disagreed with the court's verdict and appealed to the appellate court. Tran Van Nock and Luong V. Luon's sentences remained unchanged, but Luong Tin too successfully appealed. Before the incident happened, Luong Tin too had advised Fan Man Negi to pay off her debts. Although there was no concrete evidence, it was confirmed that in the days leading up to Fan Man Negi's death, Luong Tin too was not present at the apartment in Team Shaitsui. In March 2004, based on Luong Tin too's behavior in prison and his prospects after the trial, the appellate judge reduced his sentence from life in prison to 18 years in prison. In April 2014, Luong Tin too was released from prison. However, in December 2021, more than 7 years after his release, Luong Tin too committed another crime. He behaved indecently with his friend's 10-year-old daughter under the pretext of giving the girl a massage. Once again, Luong Tin too was handcuffed and sentenced to 12 months in prison. Truly, old habits die hard. The case of the body stuffed into a Hello Kitty doll shocked Hong Kong and the world. Many curious people visited the building at 31 Granville Road. The residents and shop owners there felt extremely insecure and gradually moved away. The apartment where the incident occurred was abandoned, with no one daring to go near it. Many people reported experiencing strange phenomena in the building. Some saw a Hello Kitty doll identical to the one containing Fan Man. Nuki's head discarded next to a trash bin, but the doll in question was very clean. Others, when reviewing security camera footage, saw shadows passing by at night that were not associated with theft, causing them great confusion and fear. Today, the building at 31 Granville Road has been demolished and replaced with another structure. The horrific murder case has gradually faded into oblivion. Few people know that the bustling and lively street was once the site of such a hauntingly gruesome crime.